battle system in the game encourages grinding on low-level enemies to get stronger, especially for the support spells in the game. You eventually learn that magic can take on any enemy you face. Not to say that's a bad thing, but it just made the rest of the game easier because of the grinding I did after the canoe. I, of course, grinded levels later in the game for Estino, Holy, and Ultimate spell, to the point where they can do damage against the final boss. Final boss is fun and proved to be a nice challenge. I felt like I had a lot of fun toward the middle of the game because of how overpowered I was. Towards the end of the game, I got bored and turned off random encounters to beat the game quicker. Also, you need to go to Altair so much in the early game just for it to be destroyed later. The soundtrack was amazing and elevated the dark moments in the game, such as the Imperial Army, Escape, and Game Over music. I even listened to the old soundtrack and there were some pretty good tunes there. The animations were so fluid and looked cool, especially Ultimate looking amazing. All the destroyed buildings after the attack were also a nice touch to the world. All the menus again looked good and looked like the artwork that comes with the Pixel remasters. It's an okay game and a step up for the Final Fantasy series, especially with their surprisingly good story. It hit on almost all marks, like most games from the era. It feels like a little grindy, especially at the beginning, but it felt okay to play, and I was having fun with the system, even if it's a bit different than the previous Final Fantasy games. That is to be expected, though. Look at other large series in the time, having weird sequels is nothing new on the NES. During the early development stages, Hironobu Sakaguchi decided to watch Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. The team then decided to scrap what they had written and move closer to the Empire versus their evil. Along with a entirely new combat system and a new keyword system, another hurdle had to be faced. Natsir Gabelli was forced out of Japan since his work visa expired. Square's team had no choice but to move to the USA to finish Final Fantasy II. Square's team had no choice but to move to the USA to finish Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy II was an overall amazing game that I was surprised by how good it was. The only thing I didn't like was the keyword system, because you could easily miss some key piece of dialogue. The only thing I didn't like about the keyword system because you could easily miss some key piece of dialogue and you need to backtrack to the past keyword person. You need to progress the story. It's a great game if you're a story-focused person, but there's some pitfalls like not really caring for who the Dark Knight was. It's still a great game that I would recommend to people curious what the next Final Fantasy has to offer. Final Fantasy II has some major differences than Final Fantasy I. Some are good, some are bad. Where Final Fantasy I felt like an adventure, Final Fantasy II feels darker in tone than in 1. From the end animations changing from a spin to a curt nod, to the music and the overall sounding dire, Final Fantasy II feels like they're trying to one-up themselves in every way, including the battle system, which some have changed from their D&D roots of Final Fantasy I.